Okay, what's up? It's iCkEdMeL. We are here. We're here. And what's up, everybody? Welcome to the live streams. Thank you for stopping by. Good evening or afternoon or morning, whatever it is over there. Sorry, I was having a little issues because I shouldn't start with cursing, right? YouTube demonetized. Facebook wasn't launching for some reason, so I had to exit and come back. And the T thing too. But what's up? Welcome, man. Appreciate you stopping by. We're gonna talk about a couple of things. Nancy Grace, BRYAN Kohberger. There's quite a few videos and things that we're gonna get to before I think the podcast. And also I found this really interesting article, but I think I'm gonna leave the article for after the stream because I think it'll be a good one to read to you guys because I think some people like the reading, some people don't. Some people do. The other thing, let's see here. So I got some complaints. Well, one, let me show this. This one, somebody sent me this morning. This was, Hola. Hola. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it, man. I had to come through. I had to come hang out with you guys, say hi. Chat, talk a little bit. Thank you. So this was this morning. I got a laugh out of this, man. First thing when I woke up this morning, I checked my Facebook inbox. If you guys don't know the whole Alpha David thing, it's on my Twitter, it's on my Facebook, it's pinned on Twitter, it's pinned on Facebook, it's on my YouTube channel. You type in Alpha David. You know, there's a caller that called in talking about Alpha David, and we believe he was trolling, but bless him if he wasn't. He was referring to the affidavit. And so somebody sent me a screenshot this morning. I took the courtesy for YouTube at least to blur it out because I didn't do it for Twitter. I forgot. And so it says, I don't mean to be a Karen and hold standards high, but this has been weighing on my conscience for days. Please don't say Alpha David is full of misogynistic undertones and deferring to male names for an object. What? For an object insinuates that men are better than women. It's so offensive, and I'm honestly so upset and appalled. Get sensitivity training. Ask yourself what you would do if you just had a centimeter of a soul. Now, brah, I was talking to my friend about this, brah. I said, maybe this has got to be a troll, bro. It's got to be a troll. And my friend, I guess, went and clicked on the profile and looked at the school they were going to and just read a little bit about them. My friend thinks this person's for real. It's like one of those, kind of over the top people and stuff like that. just some of the background and looking at the person's profile, and apparently too, they were getting flamed in the YouTube. I mean, on the Facebook page that they posted this in, they were getting flamed in comments. I don't want nobody to get attacked or anything like that, but this was hilarious. I guess maybe they didn't know the joke. They don't get it. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, wow. That was the first thing I woke up to today. That was one of the first things. Now another thing, because somebody was complaining about the video I did yesterday, and I meant to pull up. I wanted to see if that roommate, not roommate, the Tinder date, which a lot of people feel on the fence about it. Some people believe it, some people don't. Some people believe it, but say that she shouldn't have even come forward with it because it's just I don't know. I believe the lady. Some people think it was a clout move. Some people, people had a lot of different feelings about Haley, the lady yesterday. And let me see if I can pull it up. Haley. I'm curious if she posted anything else. Probably not. Let me see. I checked earlier today. No, she hasn't posted anything. So the other comment, and I got this in my inbox. Somebody was upset. This was early in the morning too. So sometimes you got to really be careful. I realize you got to be careful what you look at in the morning. This didn't upset me. I mean, I did reply back to this person because I was like, what? But it says, iCkEdMeL, I liked you so much before that Tinder video was really disturbing. Me, I'm the disturbing one, not this guy with this tickling stuff, which a friend of mine was making the argument that maybe he's awkward, but he was trying to be a gentleman maybe by following her to the bathroom because maybe she was saying, hey, she doesn't feel good. So he wanted to make sure she was good. But I think we're all looking at this with hindsight, what he's being charged with. And it says, I couldn't believe that that was you. How do we know any of these people are real? This is the problem with YouTube, using these random people. I liked you, Mel, but you are part of the problem. The comments you make about Bryan are deplorable. So this is not the first time this happened to me. I've had people like get upset with me because I'll sometimes like, I'll take little jabs or whatever at the, the killers or alleged killers, whatever, people that have done horrendous. I'll take little jabs, tongue-in-cheek stuff. And there's people that get really offended for somebody that allegedly murdered 4 people cold. And says here, and using that voice, you're acting like a bully. Pretty scary yourself. I didn't want to post for others, just letting you know, as someone who watched and had subbed, that YouTube was very disturbing and triggering, especially when you did that voice. If you care, ? I'm like, oh my God, Lord Almighty, Lord Almighty. And that voice thing is something I've been doing for a long time. Even before YouTube, even my previous jobs, I used to always do different voices. My coworkers would laugh, just something to get through the reading. But I guess they didn't like that. They're upset. Canceled. Let me see here. Okay, that's the other story. I might come back later too, because I wanted to go cover. There's 2 other things I want to do. Hopefully, if I have time. I do want to come back later to hang out with you guys and cover another story. Follow back with Anna, because that story is pretty interesting and messed up. This one here, this article. Oh, and with this whole thing too, BRYAN Kohberger search warrants sealed. I might read the court documents. I think a lot of people have seen it, but I think I reached out to Maven. I spoke with her on the phone today. She's so pleasant. The attorney that I had on YouTube. And I might read it and then just have her make some comments on it tomorrow for people that are kind of curious what it means. She had some interesting things to say. I think the document is pretty straightforward. And the other thing with the document, another thing, but we'll get further into it. But the thing with the document too is that this was filed December 30th. So this was before, and just Maven pointed this out. This was before he was even arrested. So yeah, they probably wanted to protect this information because people are going to, public records, they'd find out. But, there's probably other reasons as well. They were at that house, his apartment, for a very long time. So we will, if you haven't seen it, wait for me, because I'm going to read it to you, and then I want to get an attorney's thoughts. And she's kind of busy tonight. I talked to her on the phone for a little bit. So, but we can do that tomorrow for people interested in that. And in this video here is Nancy Grace, but it's like a nice little kind of recap, and she talks about some things before we get to the podcast.
Court tomorrow for a status hearing as prosecutors continue building their case against him. Let's bring in Nancy Grace, host of Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. And Nancy, as I introduce you, I just want everybody to see this new timeline. So people, you might be familiar with some of the timelines of where the girls were, when they suspect that the murders took place. But now there's an update and this question about BRYAN Kohberger's car caught on campus at 5:25 a.m. at WSU. That's an additional piece of information, Nancy.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting about that? Last night, we got in the car in the dark, just as it would have been when Kohberger allegedly was leaving the crime scene, which is right behind me. And I want to circle back in a moment and tell you what I've learned here in Moscow. We got in the car and took the route we have followed along his cell phone pings. Remember, he turned off his phone or put it on airplane mode around 2:47 a.m., we believe. That's the time he would have been leaving his own apartment in Pullman. Then the phone gets turned back on at about 5:30 a.m. as he is pulling back into his apartment, as you just described. But that route that he took, that we believe he took, very, very circuitous. What should have been a 10-minute ride turned into an hour-long ride. It was pitch dark. It was very much in no man's land. There was sparse housing along the way. And this is what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if that's where he got rid of the murder weapon. It was not near the Snake River. I don't think that's the answer. But in that long hour drive.
And that's what I think, too. We talked about, even when we first read the affidavit, that long ride, I think he probably disposed of stuff as well along that path. Giselle Jimenez, thank you so much for the super chat. Dr. Edward, thank you so much for the super chat, and I will call you too after this stream. We can have a brief conversation. Mel, we think you're a professional. Wonderful job. We love you. Dr. Moskowitz and Just Julie. Thank you so much. Love you guys. I'll get back to you. Harry Potter's beard. Thank you for the membership. Says, Alpha Karen be talking out of her ass. We love you. The alpha thing is just so funny that it's still going on and on and on. And it's funny for the people that don't know about it, that encounter it, like that lady that I covered at the beginning of the stream where she lost her mind saying it's misogynistic and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, Lord. Look. And if you guys could help me out with the likes too, please, I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much. Let's keep rolling. And a tip, just a tip. You know, I talk about this on Discord, but I also mention this sometimes on YouTube. If you guys have your full name as your username, please change it to something else. Maybe your first name and something, make up something or what alias, whatever, just to protect yourself. You know, because I don't want these weird people, and they've done it in the past, try to come for people in the chat, weird people watching and stuff like that. So please, you know, consider changing your full government name if that's in your you know, thing.
Is that where we're going to find the murder weapon? And also, I'm wondering if cops are going to match up earlier routes that he took trying to find an escape route. Did he drive that same exact route before, practicing for the night he committed the murders?
Very interesting. And what have you found there as you are there in Idaho on the ground?
Well, I've got to tell you something. It's a lot different than what you can see in the pictures and what you can see on an aerial. Very tight spaces. I mean, I'm right in front of the house, and I'm 10 feet away, 20 feet away from the next apartment. There are clear views into every single window in that home.
Oh, yeah.
And also, the partying hasn't stopped. People just seem to go, young kids from college, they go from house to house to house. I get people were in and out of this home all night until the inhabitants would go to sleep. That's what they were doing last night. So it hasn't put a damper much on that. But within the town, everything is very, very solemn. Very solemn.
And how do you feel about the prosecutor's work so far as they build this case against him? Do you think it is a strong one?
I do believe it's a strong case, as we know it from the bare bone skeleton and the probable cause affidavit. I think there's going to be a lot more, and there better be, because there are a million ways to explain away DNA on that knife sheath. He could argue, hey, I was at a gun and knife show. I must have picked that knife up and examined it. There's a million ways to...
Yeah, and I've heard multiple people mentioning that very same thought, that maybe, you know, pull, and we're actually going to watch a video to somebody trying to pull holes into the affidavit.
Explain away the DNA, but if there's more DNA, if there's another hair in the crime scene of his, no way to explain that away. And also, what's going to be in that car, in that Elantra. Now, catch this. When the cops were staking him out, when they were about to make an arrest, they saw him come out, as you know, around 4 o'clock in the morning and throw out his trash in the neighbor's receptacle. They also watched him extensively clean the inside and the outside of his Elantra. And I'm just wondering, could he have gotten it all? We're heading over to his apartment as soon as I get off with you. And I'm wondering, did he leave notes behind? Did he plan this whole thing out as meticulously as I think he did? And if he did, there will be computer searches. There could be handwritten notes. There could be a treasure trove of evidence in that apartment.
Nancy Grace, there in Idaho, thank you for taking this trip. And you can watch new episodes of Crime Stories with Nancy Grace every single day on Fox News.
The thing that I wanted to, so she was talking about, like, and we all know this, the vantage point. We'll get to the sealed documents tomorrow. The vantage point that you could clearly see, let me get full screen here, easily into this house, right? I mean, from anywhere, at all points. So my view directly into the Idaho crime scene from parking lot behind house. These four never had a chance. And so in that parking lot behind the house, you know, at nighttime, you know, and it's just a place, obviously, you know, where people just come in and out, stuff like that. Just spotting red evidence stickers on door, likely marked time and date whenever Idaho murder scene is entered. This crime scene tape placed across door, sealing it. If anyone enters, Ellie will know because it breaks the tape. Oh. What if they just break the tape and put another piece of tape after? But I guess it's like a special tape. All right. That's Nancy there outside. This is the one, too, I wanted to kind of take a look at. I think it's in the video, and it says, Idaho murders veteran defense attorney lays out case. BRYAN Kohberger team could make holes in affidavit. Hopefully it's in the, I believe it is.
Using surveillance cameras and cell phone information and hard work and a little bit of DNA, police seem to have solved the murder of 4 Idaho University college students. BRYAN Kohberger, a graduate student at nearby Washington State University, has been arrested and charged with 4 counts of murder. He was studying, of all things, criminology. If you have not had a chance, you should read the affidavit supporting the arrest warrant. The police worked really hard. They were patient, and as we've said before, they caught a break when the killer left. The case moves from arrest to prosecution, but that does not mean the investigation is over. Paul Morrow has been following the case from the beginning, and he's been on the ground in Idaho. He's a former New York police inspector and a lawyer. Thank you for joining us, Paul. DNA is great, but you still need someone to compare it to. How did the police identify and develop a suspect?
So that's actually a very interesting aspect of this case, because as all of us heard early on, there was this reporting that they had done a genealogical database ping to see if the DNA from the knife sheath that you referenced comes back to somebody, and it came back to a relative, his father. Problem there is that the genealogical databases are not considered, at least by the genealogical companies, up to the evidentiary standard. They don't actually love cooperating with law.
Only thing with that, though, they've been saying it's paternity that was done, though, right? And so that one, I believe, does fall into it is considered high standard, I thought.
Enforcement fully because it damages their business model. And so there's a reason none of that is in the affidavit, because what they did was they just used that as a clue. They knew that, okay, this is pointing at somebody, it looks like very strong evidence, but we have to parallel that. We're going to go get that in a stronger, better way. And so that became the focus of the investigation very clearly, and that's why the case came down when and how it did. If you look at the end of the affidavit, they collect the garbage DNA on the 28th. They have it matched on the 29th. They must have turned around right that day and said, Mr. Prosecutor, write that arrest warrant, and the case comes down on the 30th.
All right, surveillance cameras, cell phone towers. I mean, I love reading that affidavit. I mean, it's fascinating to me, but for folks who haven't had a chance to read it, how did that play a role in this investigation?
Well, you and I discussed this at an earlier time, Trey, that they were going to be using a lot of this digital stuff, but it takes a lot of effort and time. That's one of the things I think frustrated the public. So what they would do in this case is it takes a couple of rounds of search warrants. You're going to be dumping the phone towers, the cell towers, to see what cell phones are active in that area. They actually didn't get to that until after they had done the car. The early forensics were actually the video. And you know, there are 2 unsung heroes in this affidavit that aren't getting a lot of attention. But the first thing that I see in that affidavit that really began to point to the suspect,
the WSU, I think, officers,
is the fact that 2 WSU, Washington State University campus police, took the initiative after they received on the 25th, November 25th, the BOLO, be on the lookout for the white Elantra. One of them made a database check. One of them just physically went out looking in the middle of the night. Both of them hit on Kohberger's car. And so that was pretty fast, and that was an early indication of where they were going. From there, they realized, okay, we got something. They did the search warrants on the phone pings. They were able to track what he'd been doing. We see that he had been doing some version of stalking either the girls or the house. And from there, it began to become a fait accompli. They knew they were in the right place. And then DNA became the real slam dunk.
And did you guys hear about this Wi-Fi thing that Steve Goncalves, Kaylee's father, in an interview, I clipped it so you can listen to it. We can listen to it. he had mentioned, and it's something that's like not in the affidavit. He had mentioned that supposedly this guy's Brian's phone connected to the Wi-Fi. Let me play that clip. Curious, you guys, Lisa, what's up? Where you been at? I haven't seen you in a while. Amazing. So Lisa sent me this. Shout out to the group, the people over there on Facebook. University of Idaho. I'm sorry, I just had to stop for me, ADD. You know me. iCkEdMeL on YouTube is talking about this post in our group. He's like, this can't be for real. I posted it this morning too. I got a laugh out of it. I was kind of, and I really thought it was a troll, but from what I hear, this person's for real. Lord Almighty. All right. So yeah, the clip, I thought it was kind of interesting. All right, let me play this. You guys can hear it for anybody that missed it, because he did like a 15-minute interview.
Makes you sick.
But this is just a short clip where he mentions it. Put the volume down. It's kind of loud. I gotta clip that for me, please, too, for Twitter. I can put that on Twitter after.
It's sickening, I'm sure, to see the information that came out in the affidavit about how he had been by the house multiple times prior to the murders as well. I don't know if you guys knew that early on.
Yeah, and close enough that he was touching their Wi-Fi. His phone was touching their Wi-Fi. Yeah, so you know how close that is. If you've had a laptop, you walk out into your front yard, you're not going to get too far. So
I don't think I saw that part. Wow.
So she's like literally like, wow, like blown away. It's not surprising, I guess. You can easily, connect. Especially on my phone now, like I see the various Wi-Fi connections besides my own in the area. Somebody could park outside. Somebody could be maybe. I think I have a pretty strong Wi-Fi connection, so you could probably even be like a house down, whatever, and you'd probably be able to pick up the signal. But this is like information that like hasn't been out.
Makes you sick. It's sickening, I'm sure, to see the information that came out in the affidavit about how he had been by the house multiple times prior to the murders as well. I don't know if you guys knew that early on.
Yeah, and close enough that he was touching their Wi-Fi. His phone was touching their Wi-Fi.
So if that's the case, and if that's true, then that's even more evidence besides just, because we were talking about the cell phone tower pings and people were saying, can they discredit or dismiss? And so if his phone on those various occasions before where he's said to have been stalking these people, the girls, that's another piece of evidence. And that's a good question too. Liz says they don't have passwords, ? That's a good question. I don't know. Did they have passwords? Also, sometimes people, like if you have Xfinity has like the guest option. And so even if you don't have the password to that specific network, you can have your own Xfinity thing and you can still like connect. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question too. What kind of password? Did they even have a password? Some people don't put passwords on their stuff. Mel O says you don't need a password to touch someone's Wi-Fi. So that I wonder about that too. Like for example, and I don't know about that. That's a good question. I don't know if there's any other tech people here. Just simply being in the vicinity and that my phone didn't access the network, but it is picking up. There's got to be some sort of transmission to at least pick up the network. Is that enough to trace my phone connecting to the network, or at least trying to, or at least being in the vicinity? Or is it just data? The data dump they can pull off from his own cell phone, and specific times they can show what networks in the area at the time. Networks close by, passwords. So it's pretty interesting. And again, this is the thing that, is it going to hurt the case at this point? I guess probably not, But this was like really interesting and kind of shocking. I guess it's not shocking, but it's interesting. And so that just gives us like maybe like more hints that there's going to be probably a whole bunch of stuff that comes out when they go to trial. And I think When's the hearing? Is that tomorrow, Thursday? You guys are so funny. The Facebook stuff.
Multiple times prior to the murders as well. I don't know if you guys knew that early on.
Yeah, and close enough that he was touching their Wi-Fi. His phone was touching their Wi-Fi. Yeah, so.
Charlotte says, not Charlotte, Claire Louise says, Rado traffic will show who connected. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Okay, so I don't know if it's going to be live or not. Well, probably 11 Eastern, right, 11 Eastern. If it's going to be live, we'll see if I can set up a stream, because, yeah, we definitely want to see what's going on with that. Status hearing tomorrow. It's probably, are those long, those status hearings? Maybe it's short.
You know how close that is. If you've had a laptop, you walk out into your front yard, you're not going to get too far. So
I don't think I saw that part. Wow.
So let's move on from this. The other thing I want to show real quick is there's two things here. And so first, let's just start with
we've heard a lot of
CAMILLE VASQUEZ, Fuego Caliente. It's from the Johnny Depp trial. And so apparently, I think it's, okay, NBC has, I think, hired her as a legal analyst. She's still working with the law firm, whatever law firm she's with, and she's making a lot of moves. And so she had made some comments on the murder case.
About these internet sleuths. Everyone's trying to get in on the case and give their theories, and
in
some cases name names. Do those kind of folks hurt a case, or can they occasionally help a case too?
I think they can do both, right? I mean, I think the internet sleuth, this has become something that really captivated the country, this case has. And so people want to talk about the evidence. They want to talk about the human impact. And these are college students, right? So I think it can be incredibly helpful for investigators. They pleaded to the public and asked for information about the white Elantra. But it could also be helpful, or not helpful, harmful when you start naming someone.
From your
and so it was just really short what she had to say. The other thing, though, before I even play this next part of the video, so the roommate, okay, Dylan, apparently, like, the media has been following her around and stuff. Oh, I didn't even finish playing this video. Let's see which one here. They've been, I guess, following her around. Surviving Idaho roommate Dylan is seen outside her parents' home for the first time since it was revealed she froze in fear when she spotted the killer. So I guess they're just standing outside this house, or I don't know. I wonder what they do. Do they just have, like, people with cameras maybe sitting in the cut, sitting in the car, just waiting 24/7? And it says, dressed in shorts in chilly 44-degree weather, Morrison had her blonde hair tied back for a brief outing to Starbucks close to her home. She can't even go to Starbucks. She also wore a navy blue fleece top. And it's here they're just taking pictures. I wonder if she even knew that they were out there taking pictures, or she found out, like, maybe the next day or later on that they were taking pictures. And I was like, damn, bro, like, I don't know. Are they hoping to get some sort of comment from her? And so that's where I want to play this next clip, because the family attorney, I think the Goncalves family attorney had made a comment about the roommate, just some of his thoughts on it.
vantage point, Shannon. I mean, and there are a lot of open questions, including this witness, of course, who saw Kohberger, saw the blood and all of that, and nothing was reported or nothing. And then vantage point, Shannon. I mean, and there are a lot of open questions, including this witness, of course, who saw Kohberger, saw the blood and all of that, and nothing was reported or nothing, no 911 calls. I mean, that raises a great many issues. How are you kind of sorting that together?
Well, you remember, she's a victim in this case.
Right.
She is. Everybody kind of forgets that. She is still a victim in this case, and the fact that she was able to give some additional identification, I think, is beneficial to the case. She was able to, give kind of height and build and what they looked like a little bit, bushy eyebrows, things along those lines, and in regards to going back into her room, and she was scared. She was scared to death, and rightly so. This guy had just murdered 4 people in the home. So, who knows what was going through her mind, but there's the Goncalves family doesn't have any ill will towards her or anything like that.
And so the other thing too, just at the bottom of this article, there was a lady, I barely read it, but she gave some thoughts on this too. Just skip to it here real quick. Okay, here we go. Zabel said she can relate, having also had a delayed response as she pieced together the horrific 1992 attack. For those coming down on the roommate who saw him inside the house and didn't call police, I understand completely. I am too in anguish that she hadn't, she said. But I can also say that you don't know how you would react or respond in a similar situation until you're there. I can imagine the guilt the surviving roommate in Idaho must be feeling. I too called 911 reporting an unconscious person because I didn't understand the extent of what was happening. She went on to say, when you're living in an environment like college where having strangers in your house becomes normal, it's hard to fathom a tragedy like this. You don't want to believe it to be true. Being so young, I can imagine she went into shock. It's a true defense mechanism for survival, she said. I'm praying for her healing and all families involved. I know the stalking stuff is kind of weird, bro. I feel like it's almost borderline stalking. Oh, thank you for this article. And actually, I think I have the same article that you sent. Let's see, do I have this up already? No, there's an article that would be good to. Oh, you know what? This is the one I was actually going to save. Yeah. This one I'm going to save for the video after. I am going to tell you guys about this, but I want to read it in my voice. So this is going to be for after the stream. Thank you for sending that. Kayla sent that. Okay, let's see what else we got. Let me finish this video here.
Paul, I'm sure you get asked this question a lot. I know I do. Normal people cannot fathom doing this to another person. So they want to know the motive. What was the motive behind this quadruple homicide? And sometimes it's just depravity. But is there a motive here? Is there something that you can say, okay, nothing will explain it, but it explains a little bit why he did it?
It calls for speculation. I would just say that I think that the answer to that likely resides in this criminal justice fascination that he has. That's not an entirely uncommon thing. If we look into the past, the BTK killer had a similar background. The Golden State serial killer had been an ex-cop. There was a case here in New York involving somebody a bouncer who killed somebody who, I know the case well, was very fascinated with law enforcement. He was kind of a law enforcement buff. You run into these things. This guy really seems to be dedicated to this. Now, he had applied to the Pullman PD to do an internship and actually said he wanted to help rural police departments develop their digital forensic program. And he doesn't appear to have been accepted to that. Now, I don't know any more than that. It's, again, pure speculation. But this intense focus he had on being in law enforcement and being useful to law enforcement, to being engaged in law enforcement, and yet maybe not getting there, you have to start to wonder if that was one of the things that was a lack in himself that he felt he really needed to prove.
Any idea of when the trial would begin and whether the evidence is, Idaho's a death penalty state, but whether or not the evidence is solid enough? I mean, the crime can be terrible, but the evidence has to be solid, too, to seek the death penalty. Any idea on either one of those?
Listen, from what I'm hearing out there and some of the sources that I've gotten, the case looks quite strong. We're still very much in the early stages of this. They got a computer in the search warrants. That's going to tell a lot. I think that as time goes on here, he's going to begin to feel the pressure that, okay, I may be looking at the death penalty. Is there a plea on the table for life without parole? People don't love that, but, there are good reasons for it. You don't have to put the family through the trial. You never know what a jury is going to do. But you also maybe can get some indication of why he did what he did and maybe some of his activities in the past.
Paul Morrow, thank you for.
Okay, and so this one we're just gonna skim, but this is other news that's come out as well. It says no one knew of this guy at all. Lawyer for Idaho murder victims' families say BRYAN Kohberger has no connection to any of the 4 students he is accused of murdering, which, you know, I know Kaylee's father has said a couple of times, I think his theories, or that I thought one time he had alluded to, like, they knew a connection, or he knew of a connection, but it seems like they're saying there is no connection, at least from the family attorney. Let me just see it here. Yeah, it says no one knew of this guy at all. Grace said in an interview with Business Insider, according to the probable cause affidavit filed in court last week, Kohberger visited the student's home on multiple occasions. It appears from the affidavit that he was in the area of the house on several occasions. That's all we know. I mean, who knows? Maybe more will come out. Maybe it was just convenience, like location type of thing. There's a spot, you know, the easy spot. You can always view the place. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure more will come out. But there's the dad to Michael Kohberger. He was out there cleaning. Media's out there. What you cleaning up, Dad? What are you up to out there? Up to no good. No, he's probably just, I guess, cleaning. Yeah, I think we'll leave that alone. We did that already.
Suspect BRYAN Kohberger making his first appearance in an Idaho courtroom yesterday.
Yeah, let's start with Nancy. Oh, this was I need to do this too. Real quick. I don't know if we watched this the other day.
When this mugshot of BRYAN was released after a mate named Madison struggled to recognize a former classmate named Madison struggled to recognize him. She studied criminal justice with him at DeSales University, a small private Catholic college in central Pennsylvania.
He had a lot more hair and he was thinner than I remembered.
Last time she saw him, she thinks, was in 2020. They'd taken a criminology course together in her junior year. That was 2018. What stuck with her was how BRYAN always had to let everyone in class know he knew his stuff, which, she said, became annoying.
Whenever he raised his hand, he definitely took it upon himself to answer the question, but yet then give every single detail that he possibly could to help further his point. It was always like, oh, BRYAN's answering this question. This is going to take up the whole entire class.
There was something else, she said. Not quite creepy, but odd.
He would stare at us whenever me and my friends would kind of like look over to the side. I would always catch him staring at us.
That's it. Where's the rest of it? Oh, I don't know why they just got that. It looks like they hired a voice narrator or something. We're just reading like a professional reader. I wish we could see the whole thing. I don't know where that's at. Speaks with Dateline this Friday. Also, maybe it's like a tease, I guess. At 9/8, Dateline. Maybe we could watch that on YouTube TV on Discord. Dateline. Set a reminder for that. Hopefully remember. This part here is pretty short too, and then we'll listen to the podcast.
And take his time killing them. He reminds me in certain facets of BTK.
Interesting. I want to play something for you here, Nancy. This is Monroe County, Pennsylvania. Keep in mind that's where he and the father drove. This is the assistant DA giving an explanation as to why he would waive extradition. Interesting answer here. I'll get your reaction after we play it.
I definitely believe that one of the main reasons the defendant chose to waive extradition and hurry his return back to Idaho was the need to know what was in those documents.
The need to know what was in those documents. He's studying to get his doctorate in criminology, right? And next hour we're going to have the daughter of the killer, and she's got some interesting things to say. Do you believe that DA there was right, that he wants to learn more about what they've learned about him?
I think his reasoning to waiving extradition was two-pronged. Number one, why fight it? I've done 1 million extradition hearings. All they are is simply, are you Kohberger? And if he says no, then I would have a fingerprint kit right there in the courtroom to prove him wrong and send him on his way pronto. Number one, so why fight it? Number two, exactly what the DA said. This guy was so obsessed with violent crime. As part of his studies, he sent out, reportedly, questionnaires to violent criminals, murderers, rapists, including questions like, what was going through your mind at the time of the crime? While you were killing the victim, what were you thinking? This guy is obsessed with murder and all things criminal, and I think the DA was right. He has to know what they've got. Why? Because of an obscure, bizarre curiosity, but also so he can begin building his defense.
Wow. Nancy, thank you.
Okay. All right, let's get started with the thing because we're ready. Already, I think how many? 40 minutes in? Oh, this is a long one too, so we got to get started with this. Let's get started with Nancy. Nancy. Let me get the super chats real quick too. Nate, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, always love your channel and your mods are the best. Just don't hate me because I'm vegan. No, I love you. Be nice, Mel. Muscle March Fitness, and you've been around for a while, Nate. Muscle March Fitness, thank you for the super chat. Says, Dad needs to chill talking to the media. Yeah, he's spilling some info, spilling the inside info. Jay Westside, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, do we know if the roommate at least text or called her roommates after that to see if they were okay? No idea. Good question. No idea. Maybe we'll find out hopefully through the trial. Heaven on Earth, your alternate voice. Yeah, I'm gonna work on that after the stream. But I gotta like find a balance. I don't want to like overdo it so it's cringe. It's like I gotta find like a nice. We'll see. I don't want to overhype it either. All right, Nancy.
Crime Stories with Nancy Grace.
Nancy.
Hi guys, we are here in
Outside.
Idaho, camped out right in front of the murder scene. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us here at Fox Nation and Sirius XM 111. We specifically wanted to come here at night to see what the killer saw. And I've just got to tell you, I'm completely blown away. It's so different than anything you see in the photos or the aerial shots we're seeing on TV. I just went up this hill behind the murder scene, behind the murder house.
Climbing.
And I took a video on my phone. And Jackie, could you play the video I just took a few moments ago? I'm here behind the murder scene right now, and you can see straight into the girl's place. This is the parking lot we've been hearing about, right behind their home. I mean, it's right here. It's a lot tighter and a lot smaller than you think. And just looking up here, I feel like you can see straight into their home. These girls never had a chance against a predator. They really did not. Guys, again, thanks for being with us. I want to go straight out to a special guest joining us. Joining me is Chris McDonough, director of the Cold Case Foundation. I found him on the interview room on YouTube. Chris, it's exactly like you were trying to tell me. I mean, this guy would have to know exactly where he was going. And the driving here is really tight. I'm surprised people don't wreck just trying to pass each other, going two different ways. The driveway up past the murder scene and circling around the murder scene to the back parking lot that I'm talking about, it's very hard to imagine two big SUVs passing each other. The streets are very narrow. There's snowbanks all around us. The pavement is slick with frozen ice. But the thing is, Chris McDonough, you can look straight into their bedrooms. You can see everything.
Yeah, Nancy, and to think, as we've been discussing on your show for weeks now, this to think about the 12 times his alleged phone was going off in that environment, and then kind of process that with what is he doing? I mean, there's got to be a fantasy process going on here, a voyeurism of some point. I mean, it's that.
Bro, and that whole, I got to share something crazy with you guys. I'm going to keep letting it play, but Silvio sent me this local story this morning about these peeping Toms, recent, a couple of them, two of them, I think. You're going to be like, bro, I'm going to send this to myself, but it made me think about this whole voyeurism thing. And I think to it, Kohberger, I thought the affidavit had said, I don't remember exactly. I think out of the, it was 12 times they said? Out of the 11 times, like they were all like nighttime or early morning hours or something like that. I thought something like that. Wait till you see this crap. And we keep hearing a lot of stories like this in Florida. I'm sure it's happening everywhere. Let me just show you right now. Let's just show this. Weirdo shit. You ready for this?
With safety alert and the hunt for two men accused of despicable acts, deputies say they were both seen videotaping victims without their consent, and one of the victims is just a minor. Local 10's Christian De La Rosa is live with what you need to know. Christian.
And we want to warn you, some of these images we're about to show you may be too disturbing for some. A zoom on the face of the creep police are looking for in Weston. He's seen on surveillance video looking through a glass.
Bruh.
Door into a home. The man
I'll spare you the
staring at a woman and a child watching television inside.
This guy literally has his ished out. I mean, it's censored, but
and staring at a woman and a child.
Woman and a child, and the homeboy's like creeping.
Watching television inside. For 10 minutes, he stands there, pleasuring himself.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's a creeper. I'll be scared of. Especially with kids around, you know.
The despicable and violating act happened Friday just past 8 at night along the 100 block of Bonaventure Boulevard. Dina Hernandez lives in this community with her children. Do you feel safe in your own home?
Not with this no more.
The Broward County...
Yeah, you guys got to close your blinds, close the windows at night or whatever, man. And I just keep hearing of a lot of stories like this, too. And then check out this guy.
Sheriff's Office also working another case of voyeurism. This one at a Family Dollar store on West McNabb Road in North Lauderdale. The man in the white hoodie appearing to snap a picture under a woman's behind. In this case, a victim notices the scumbag and confronts him, trying to
straight out scumbag.
Take the phone away, but he eventually gets away.
That's weird, bro. Look at this.
A previous mugshot of the suspect. He's identified as 27-year-old Lewis Phillips. Deputies say if you've seen any of these two men, you should call police right away. And that incident from the Family Dollar happened back on December 17th. This one in Weston at this apartment complex called St. Andrews at Weston happened Friday night. Again, the biggest fear right now for detectives is that these men are still out there victimizing more people and potentially even children.
That is crazy, bro. It popped in my head when we're talking about the whole voyeurism thing. People just, well, the other guy at that store was super blatant, but the people just walking up to houses. I've seen stories like this a lot, or on the Ring cams or something like that. People creeping around the house, looking through the windows and just staring. And so Silvio sent that to me this morning. And I was like, oh, hell no. Hell no.
That's close, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I thought that there was a copse of trees right behind their home. Well, it's not really that much. I would say there's maybe 7 or 8 spindly trees. I mean, that is no impediment whatsoever to a predator trying to look at the girls in that home. We have been out walking the streets of Moscow today, and we went to the Mad Greek. When we first walked up, I wouldn't say it was a somber atmosphere, but it was really quiet and low-key, almost peaceful. And when we walked up, there is let me just say, a remembrance of the 4 victims out front with candles, and people are adding flowers. And inside, I just sat there and listened to the music they were playing and took it all in, and I could just see the girls working there. I saw their co-workers. And I wonder how much their murders have torn the fabric of this community. Also joining me is Cheryl McCullum, founder and director of the Cold Case Research Institute and star of Zone 7, a new hit podcast. Cheryl, it's very eerie, actually, walking around this college town. Everybody's so peaceful and friendly. And to imagine that is the backdrop for just incredible violence right behind me. I mean, Cheryl, you must have seen the video of the cleaners taking out bloody mattresses right behind me.
Yes. And I've seen your videos today. And Nancy, what is so important about what you are doing? Nothing takes the place of boots on the ground. And when you were a prosecutor, that was one of the things you were the best at. You would meet us on scene. You would talk to us about this is the crime scene, but what's just over the other side in those trees? What's to the left and to the right and behind us? And what you're able to determine, where was his watch area? And that's something you and I talked about week 1. He watched, he studied, he stalked. And now you're tracing his steps, and that is powerful.
Well, I keep looking off to the side, and right here is the incline leading up to the back of the house.
I wonder where she posted the video of this. I heard she has like a video thing, but I think it's like paid only. I think it's behind a paywall or something like that. Maybe that's where it's at.
And what's so, how can I say this, probative about what I'm saying is when you go to the front of the house, you could be spotted. But when you start walking up this incline to my right, nobody can see you. We have been walking up and down in the dark, and there are apartments all around us. I guarantee you nobody noticed us. Nobody could see us. It's not lit up at all. There are no street lights up there. And behind them, it's like a predator's dream platform. You know, to Dr. Angela Arnold joining me, she is a renowned psychiatrist joining us out of the Atlanta jurisdiction at AngelaArnoldMD.com. Angie, I couldn't help when I was up there on that parking lot right behind this home. I thought about a deer stand. I'm not a hunter,
deer stand?
But I've seen a lot of deer stands growing up in the country. It's the perfect vantage point to look down on an innocent prey that has no idea you're there. I mean, you can watch them from a deer stand as long as you want, and they'll have no idea. And that's all I can think about up there in that parking lot.
And he did it at least 12 times, Nancy. I mean, he was stalking these girls. It's so creepy and so scary for all young girls going to college everywhere, if you ask me.
Well, the mind of a predator that would go up there and stare at them, and I'm glad you said at least 12 times. I caught that in the PC, probable cause warrant affidavit, at least 12 times. And this is really interesting, and everybody jump in when you have a thought. Cheryl, you know, at the very get-go, I said, listen, this is going to be an exhaustive task. It will take meticulous working, but what they really need to do is a cell tower data dump, which means you get all of the cells that are around the area. Hold on, my papers are flying away. Within a certain couple of hours. And I now find out they did that. But they didn't see Kohberger's phone. And now we know it's because he turned his phone off when he was leaving his home, his apartment in Pullman. And that has been verified by the cell phone records. So he had this thing planned down to a T.
He did, but Nancy, that's going to come back to bite him because you and I always talk about patterns. How often did he shut his phone off or put it on airplane mode? I bet not very often. So why that night during that time frame? That's a bad look all day for him.
Yeah, I know. I've been thinking about a lot of other defendants that turned their phone on airplane mode just coincidentally at the time of the murder. And we're seeing that more and more and more. Now, is that Chris McDonough or is that our friend Josh Fialo jumping in?
Yeah, that's Chris, Nancy.
Go ahead, Chris.
And to think, is it possible that his intent was to methodically monitor these poor victims?
I wouldn't be surprised if he took notes.
Yeah,
what do you think, Kelly?
Exactly.
I would not be surprised if BRYAN Kohberger took notes, sat up there in his car or on foot, and took notes about this one goes to sleep at this time and this one turns off the light at this time. He probably watched them changing clothes, making out with their boyfriends, cooking dinner. I mean, I just wish you guys could be here and see what I'm seeing right behind me. I look straight in their windows. It's very voyeuristic, but it's a crime scene. I feel very odd about looking in their windows, even at a distance.
Damn.
A Fox Nation exclusive.
An international pop star stripped of human rights.
Trust. Get ready to take your
Was out onto the front yard and drink and party. It's like life is just going on. And this crime scene is right in the middle of it all. Now, joining me, guys, is a new guest, our new friend, Josh Fialo. He is the breaking news reporter at the Daily Beast, and he has been investigating Kohberger's background. What, if anything, Josh, have you learned?
Yeah, we've learned a lot by talking to people who are close to Kohberger at different phases in his life. And what I can tell you, it seems he really took on his current personality during his senior year of high school in Pennsylvania. Now, two of his friends back home told us that he was overweight and really down to earth in his first few years of high school. But then once senior year came around, he really thinned out. And then his personality...
What, over the summer, Josh?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess he was, he was overweight and kind of this weird kid the first 3 years. And then senior year came.
Yeah, we've been saying... I remember somebody was trying to tell me, no, it's not senior year. Everywhere, that's what they said. It happened senior year. That's what a previous friend of this guy said. Senior year, this transformation happened, I guess.
Hey, Josh, you know what else I read? Okay. I read that because he was overweight, that people would bully him. And don't get...
Yeah, and they were talking about... some reporter said he had a food fetish. And so, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I just want to throw that in there. I have no reason to say that.
Tuned up, Dr. Angela Arnold, that somehow that excuses crimes in the future because you were bullied as a teen in high school. Don't even, because I know where you're going to come from. So I heard that, Josh, that he would be bullied about his weight, and then over the summer leading into his senior year, he got thin as a rail. R-A-I-L was the quote I read.
Yes, ma'am, he did. He was thin as a rail when he came back, and it wasn't only his weight that was different, it was his entire personality. His friends told us that he now, started taking boxing classes, and now he was kind of the bully, not just with strangers, but even within his own friend group. And he would talk down to people, including his friends, and saying like they weren't intelligent enough to be his friend. And he would basically push his friends to shun him from the friend group because he had just became a completely different person from his senior year.
Josh, guys, Josh Fialo is joining us from the Daily Beast. Dr. Angie, what do you think of that? The bullied turns into the bully.
Nancy, wasn't there also a history of some heroin abuse in him?
Yeah, I've read that. I don't know how much stock to put in it, but I have read that he got on heroin in high school, and then he got off of heroin in a quick turnaround. And I find that hard to believe that you can just stop cold turkey. But
Well, you can't really.
Yeah.
Because, Nancy, people that have some mental illness will turn to drugs. Heroin specifically will help you decrease your anxiety.
Okay, I know.
Heroin also causes, we were talking about that on a previous stream, it causes can cause weight gain. Like the downers can cause weight gain. Those, what am I thinking of? Those narcotics, the pain ones. Heroin and weight gain. We talked about that before, so that probably wasn't helping him. Probably why he had to quit. Who knows what other reasons it could be. And then there was also there was at least 2 friends that had said he was doing substances,
I'm out here freezing my rear end off in Moscow in front of this house, but I can cut your mic even from here. So don't start up about mental illness. The man is getting a PhD in criminal studies.
I'm gonna be that mental illness bullshit. No, you can have mental illness and be educated, right? Just because you have a PhD. I mean, I don't know. He could have something. Some of these psychiatrists, they all got issues too. Some of these psychiatrists on medication too, on psych meds and shit, and then, evaluating people and putting them on meds too. No?
They asked him point blank in court, do you understand what's going on? Do you have any mental incapacity? He's like, I'm fine. I understand. So you said mental illness. Being a bully is not, oh dear Lord in heaven. Guys, can you look over there? Look, I can see right in that, guys. I can see what he's cooking for dinner. That's how close all of this is.
Some of these psychiatrists worse than the patients. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Maybe it's possible though. But yeah, a lot. They're just like a pharmacist. It's not uncommon. They're just regular people too. They be on medication and stuff like that.
I mean, I'm just thinking of him, Dr. Angela, looking right into these girls' kitchen and seeing everything they were doing, keeping notes about what time they would come home, and this one will be in bed by this time. Although I'm starting to wonder. Go ahead.
Worse than that too, Nancy. I mean, he wasn't just taking notes. He may have, every time he did that, he was getting off on that somehow. Just the voyeurism was bringing him some sort of pleasure. Okay, it was stimulating him. Okay, I believe he is a psychopath.
Okay, that's a far cry from what you said, mental illness. But I want to get back to what we are seeing here and what is happening right now. There are guards outside the house, and we just saw them change shifts. The house is still being protected. Going back to what Josh Fialo was saying from the Daily Beast about his personality, Jackie, we learned a little bit more about his past, specifically from a woman that claims she met him on a dating app. Let's start with C. C is in cat. Jackie.
We matched on Tinder. We talked.
Oh Lord! They're talking about the story we talked about yesterday. But some people got talked. Not majority didn't, but there were some people like, iCkEdMeL, how could you? Why are you talking about it? Meanwhile, like mainstream media, everybody's talking about it, Inside Edition, Nancy Grace, everybody. But iCkEdMeL, how dare you cover that and talk about it? How dare you? So disgusting.
For a couple hours, and then he was like, hey, you want to go to the movies with me tonight? And I was like, sure. So we went to the movies. Honestly, I don't even remember what movie we saw. We ended up going back to my dorm, and he kind of invited himself inside. I thought he was just going to drop me off, but that was not the case. He kind of invited himself inside, and I was just like, okay.
And I was telling my mother the story last night when I went to go pick up Maddie, and I was like, man, yeah, you heard about the killer, right? The Idaho student killer. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I was telling her the video that I did, and about we were talking about the app, the dating apps, how unsafe they are. And one of the things my mother asked, I guess, just, she was like, but why did she let him inside? I was like, yeah, I don't know. Because I've talked to Silvio about that too. And even Silvio's out there. Hopefully he's not watching. I don't know. But I don't even think he brings these chicks back home. Not on the first date. They're going somewhere else in the car. Because you just never know. I don't know. I wouldn't do that either. Probably like the first date. I don't know. I mean, people do it though, especially if you're young, but you just never know. And this is not judgment on her, but that was one of the questions that my mother asked me. And I was like, I don't know. But I also could sense, because she had said that like she didn't invite him, but he kind of like invited himself, and she kind of like didn't know how to say no, I guess, and so I don't know. So he just kind of came up there.
Okay, I went along with it. So he wanted to watch another movie on Netflix, and I said, sure. He kept trying to touch me, not like inappropriately, just like trying to tickle me and like rub my shoulders and stuff. And I was like, why are you touching me, or what are you doing? And he would just like get super serious, and he's like,
and then we've even talked about this, and I don't know if this is what the person got upset about. I mean, it's a legitimate question, because I had talked to Sylvia about this, and I was just wondering, like, I wonder if this guy's a virgin. I just had wondered, because like you really don't hear of any so far. I haven't heard of any girlfriends coming forward. And honestly, when I talked to Sylvia about that, but he was like, "But what if you were the girlfriend? Would you come out?" And I was like, "No, probably not. Like, I wouldn't want to. I dated this guy, probably not. But just curiosity. Did this guy even have a girlfriend? Was he still like a virgin? I don't know. They say he was like awkward, and so I don't know if like the tickling thing, because my mother chuckled at the tickling thing. My mother's old fashioned, she's old school. So like I told her tickling, like the face she made, she was like, "What?" I don't know if that was his way of like trying to break the ice, but like tickling. I just couldn't see that as trying to pull that on a first date, but maybe he was trying to make her comfortable and trying to rub her shoulder. Maybe he was trying to get it on. Maybe he didn't know how to, those social cues and how to like engage. And I guess they were younger, but I don't know. When I was younger in high school, I would have, it didn't occur to me like on the first dates to the movies and shit to like tickle the chick. Like, I don't know.
I'm not. And I'm like, you are though. And he's like, I'm not touching you. Kind of like. And the weird thing, and then to deny when she confronted him about it a little bit, like, I'm not touching you. I mean, crap. But in school back then, like in high school, the movies thing, like to me, is like your hands next to the other girl's hand and they're apart, and you're nervous the entire time, and you slowly inch your hand over, and you're like, and you're moving slowly, and then maybe it touches, and then you're just trying to feel, not tickle, but they were older than, I think he was like in his younger 20s, or like maybe brush your leg up against her leg and then see. I know nowadays you get canceled for that too. They call that mansplaining. But like, just put your knee against her, just kind of see, get a feel. But he just, I don't know. Try to gaslight me into thinking that he didn't touch me, which is weird. But then I was like, I'm just gonna run to the bathroom quick, and he was like, okay. And then he followed me to the bathroom, which I thought was kind of weird.
And I believe, Jackie, he mentioned something about she had breeder's hips.
Birthing hips. Well, I guess Nancy's saying breeder. Breeding hips even sounds even worse. Breeder's hips. But the whole bathroom thing too, I was talking to a friend about that, and she was like trying to be objective, and she said that, well, maybe she had mentioned to him, she didn't say this in the video, but maybe she had mentioned to him, hey, I don't feel so well, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Maybe he followed her just to make sure like she was okay or something like that. Maybe that's why he was by the bathroom. Breeder's hips, Jesus.
Could you play that part?
Like in the dorm, there was like a shared bathroom. He didn't go in with me, but like he stood outside the door, and like, I don't know, I just thought that was weird. And I was like, I need to get this dude to leave. Like, just not into it. So I proceeded to pretend to throw up to get him to leave. It wasn't because I was scared of him or like thought he would hurt me if I asked him to leave. It was just mostly because I'm socially awkward, didn't know how to ask him to leave. So that I did. he ended up messaging me on Tinder that he was going to go. And I was like, awesome, my plan worked. And then about an hour later, he texted me and said I had good birthing hips. So I never talked to him.
Okay, Cheryl McCollum, director of the Cold Case Research Institute and star of Zone 7. That's pretty bad when the girl has to go in the bathroom and pretend to throw up to get the guy to leave. I mean, something was telling her to get away from this guy.
Yeah, it's that gut feeling. It's that, you know, the hair on the back of your neck stands up kind of feeling. She can say she wasn't afraid, but she certainly wanted him out of there.
I mean, and to me, the whole bathroom thing, she had said that she thought it was weird that he got up and followed her. So I was just kind of curious if she had said something to him about feeling sick, or she just said, I'm going to go use the restroom. And when she noticed him following, that's when she decided, well, let me just say or pretend to vomit and stuff.
To the point that she was going to pretend to be physically sick. So, I mean, I'm glad she listened to her gut because, again, this guy shows persistence. He's not going to give up. Even when you basically throw him out, he's going to text you back and say something like you've got, you know, good birthing hips. So, again, you know, it kind of shows where he sees women and how he thinks of them, I guess. But, you know, Nancy, again, I want to go back to where you are and how crucial it is that you are there, because people are saying he had no connection to these people. He never crossed paths with them. And I want to be very clear. There is no way the families or the family attorney can know that yet. They could have crossed paths, not electronically. He could have found a way to go into the restaurant or to force them to meet and make it look like it was, you know, happenstance. But you know from being there, there's one way in and one way out. You don't just happen upon the 1122 King Road.
No, you don't. Once you're in these...
And that's the thing, too. Like, there's this back and forth. And I showed you where, like, the family... Was the family attorney... Like, he had said, like, as far as they know, there's no connection. Even though we've heard the father say he believes there is some sort of... At some point, he said. But then I think he said there's not... Or I don't even know. But it's gone back and forth a couple of times. And I think this is like the whole conversation, too, that had come up previously about whether the house was like the... Was it the target or the individuals? Meaning, like, did he, you know, spot these individuals out somewhere, had some sort of encounter, and then he's like, okay, I'm going to look into them. And that's how he came across this house and then killed them? Or did he just come across this house and thought it was like a good spot and started watching, and maybe he was doing voyeurism and the house was the initial target, and then he saw the girl, you know? I don't know. So, but I don't know. It's hard for me to just think that it's the house. It's possible, though. It is possible, but
tight little streets, and once you go up that hill, you should have seen our producer trying to back out of that a few moments ago on the ice. You know, when I was sitting in the Mad Greek today, I was actually looking at the menu, and they had something called, Sydney, wasn't it, Kiera's Amazing Vegan Pizza, something like that. I would bet you anything, because, you know, he was a very staunch vegan. He was, you know, crazy about it. I could just see him sitting there. It was a very chill, laid-back place. It was not what I thought it was going to be, like a loud and boisterous pizza parlor. It wasn't like that at all. It was actually almost serene in there. They had music playing gently. Everybody was very low-key. I could just see him in one of those booths having his vegan pizza and checking out the two victims that worked there. Maybe even following them.
His vegan pizza. So yeah, that place has vegan options from what I've heard. It's not like a dedicated vegan restaurant, but they have vegan options, I believe.
It's not that far at all from the scene.
Vegan
Back
pizza.
to Josh Fiallo. Josh, again, thanks for being with us. What more did you learn about his background?
Yeah, so kind of going back to that TikTok video, so that would have been shortly after he graduated high school, right? That's whenever he was in community college studying, I believe it was psychology. Yeah. So, you know, we didn't learn a lot about that from that period in our own reporting. So it's interesting that that TikTok video kind of shines some light on on who he was at that point in his life, probably in.
I mean, think about it, Josh. The woman had to go to the bathroom and pretend to puke to get him to leave. And then she stayed in there until he finally just left on his own, and he texted her, I think, that he was leaving. That's bad.
And can we talk about that, Nancy, for a second?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So, to your point a minute ago and to Cheryl's, just to dovetail into that, think about him as, ego-driven, because everything is done in the dark with this guy. Okay? And this guy, thank goodness that young woman followed her gut, to Cheryl's point. And that should be a lesson to all young women today, that you're not wrong. You're never wrong. Follow that gut. Because this guy sits back and he was enjoying striking the fear in that young lady. That goes towards his personality that I'm sure the doctor could get into and break down. But I didn't mean to interrupt, Josh. I apologize, but that was my point on that.
Josh, feel free to interrupt him whenever you feel like it. So, Josh Fialo, what else did you learn?
Real quick on that point, how, she just saw right away after just one date, like how she saw the red flags, right? She knew she needed to get out of there in the middle of the first date. And I found it telling that, all these years later, she said today, the moment she saw his mugshot, she recognized him right away. I mean, how many people do you recognize immediately who you saw one time?
She even said on the TikTok, woman claims Kohberger was pushy on date years ago. She did another interview with Cuomo. So we'll take a look at a couple of links after the podcast. But she even claimed at one point that in a different TikTok video that, I think she had said that this guy wasn't even the weirdest one out of the various Tinder dates that she was on. He's not even the first or second. I think by looks alone or something like that. It wasn't even her top weird date, So I thought that was interesting.
Years ago, he obviously left an impression on her, which is kind of a scary thought. That kind of goes back to, we see that stare in his eyes, even in this clips that we've seen since his arrest. And, people in his past have commented on that.
Oh, hey, Josh, I want to talk to you about what you just said. You said we've seen pictures and clips of him. When you look into his eyes, I've got to tell you, just before we went to air, I pulled up a picture of him, and he was looking at the camera, and I went, look at his eyes. That look. There's just something. You're not the only one that noticed it, Josh. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's not just you and I. It's been other people we've talked to from throughout his life. Whenever he was in grad school in Pennsylvania, people commented, in interviews to us that he always has had this stare, and we see it even to this day. And, just going back to a little bit that we've learned about him is he obviously thought that he was the master criminal who could, if he was the one who did this crime, as cops believe, and it seems more and more apparent each day, that he thought he could do this perfect crime and get away with it. And he studied criminology. He was studying under professors who've written books about the psychology of a killer. He thought he could get away with this. And, we learned from his classmates at Washington State, where he was in the PhD program, that he was always talkative in class. And he was, just like everybody has said, he was a really smart guy. But when it came time to talk about the Idaho murders, the murders in Moscow, Idaho, right down the road, this suddenly talkative, really bright guy in class, started to become quiet, and he didn't want to talk about that in person. And I found that really interesting and telling.
Another thing, I want to go back to the shoe print, and that's where you're going to come in again, Cheryl. But to Dr. Angie joining us, I read a lot about people that knew him, what they had to say. I was reading the comments of his downstairs neighbor, one of them. And the neighbor said that he would often come up and try to create conversations, and he would become very loquacious, very gregarious, to the point the friend, I guess you could call him, the neighbor, would think it was going to be late to where he was going, so he started avoiding Kohberger. And they kept trying to get together. And I'm hearing more and more that people just innately just avoided him.
You know, Nancy, psychopaths.
And that's what I'm going to talk about after this live stream. I'm going to do a little video on that. It's pretty interesting.
Are very empty inside. Okay, and so that means that they're always trying to excite themselves or stimulate themselves, and they can be okay socially, but this guy was going out of his way to make conversation with people because he lacks good boundaries. That's the same reason he was trying to touch this girl that he went on this Tinder date with. He lacks all kinds of boundaries. He's trying to fit in society, but he knows deep down inside of himself that he does not fit in. And so that's why the loquacious talking to other people and trying to engage them and asking them to go have coffee with him and whatnot. He's trying very hard to be like other people, but people find his actions weird because he is weird. He really doesn't know, he doesn't have that sense that normal people do of how to interact on a normal basis.
Jackie, could you get our Cut 256 ready? It's Brian Flores from Fox 13, but I want to lead up to Cheryl McCollum. Cheryl, joining me from the Cold Case Research Institute. Cheryl, the shoe print. I've been studying the shoe print a lot, and of course we need to know more about it before I can be 100% sure. But it seems to me that the shoe print corroborates or confirms what DM, one of the two roommates that lived, stated. We believe it is a Van sneaker shoe print because of the diamond print on the bottom of it. Now, Kohberger was seen entering and leaving court one day in a pair of Vans. I don't see how those could be the same ones, but don't you know, they tore his apartment up looking for those sneakers because you know there'd be blood on them if he kept them. But I'm just thinking about what we can learn. We don't know if the shoe print was bloody, in fact, but I don't really see how it could be anything else but blood for them to have noticed it.
Well, there's a couple things. The footprint is near the home. The critical thing is
it's in the home. It is in the home.
But the direction that it's heading, and that's what verifies what she said, the direction he was going, same thing. So now you have a shoe that he obviously liked that type of shoe. It wasn't an Air Jordan, wasn't a work boot, it wasn't a flip-flop. So if he's got more than one pair of those type of shoes, but if I'm the crime scene investigator and I cannot find a bloody pair of Vans, I'm going to take every one to show again this pattern. This is a shoe that he likes. I've also at that scene got the size. So now I've got, the same size shoe you wear, the direction of the shoe heading out of the house, which is what DM said, and I've got a pair that should be bloody.
You're giving me a horrible flashback of the O.J. Simpson trial in the Bruno Mollies. I just want to get that out of my head, where he swore he would never wear those ugly ASS shoes, and then there were pictures from the Inquirer showing him on the side of a football field that he was covering the game wearing Bruno Mollies. So, bad flashback. Thanks for conjuring up that image, Cheryl McCollum. Go ahead.
But the sole of that shoe is going to tell you which Van it is. So, for example, if I've got, the diamonds going in one direction or they're in a different pattern than other shoes, I can tell you exactly what Van that is because the FBI's got the whole database where I can go in there and tell you precisely what shoe it is. So now if I can go back through his debit cards or credit cards and he has purchased that
and get the receipt to find out if he bought that Van. And I do wonder, are these Vans he was wearing his own shoes? I mean, they very well could be. It's the same style. It's the same size, we think. And obviously they were his shoes, so...
I would still wonder, only why one footprint. Also, it was a latent footprint, and so it was caught, I think, in a second processing. And latent, I think Flossie was telling me that, it means you don't really see it with the human eye. So, maybe they put some chemical or some sort of, stuff to be able to see that footprint.
They very well could be. I would get those shoes off his feet in a minute and get them tested. Take a listen to Brian Flores in our cut 256.
Now, in terms of timeline, we are learning a lot more about that as well. We understand two of the victims, Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogen, they went to get food at a place called the Grub Truck in the early morning hours of November 13th, roughly around 1 o'clock in the morning. They came back to the home, and around 4 in the morning, Goncalves apparently was heard saying the phrase, "There's someone here." It goes on to describe a person in there, described as a skinny build, a man who was masked in there as well. Investigators also discovered a latent shoe print, eventually, that had a diamond shape similar to Van shoes. If you ever seen shoes like that.
Another issue beside the Van shoes, two things spring to mind. In addition to the cell phone data that police obviously have put together, have retrieved, also emerging now is video from various homes. I guess it's their surveillance video. And speaking of surveillance video, I'll circle back to that. But Chris McDonough, you told me about a home that was 50 feet away from the house, the murder house. Oh. And I believe it was that home that may have picked up sounds coming from
the security camera thing.
The house. You're right. It may not even be 50 feet, Chris McDonough.
And when we talked about that, Nancy, wasn't it interesting that immediately that video camera was taken down and collected right away by the police? And I agree with you 100%. I think that's going to be the piece of evidence that puts the vehicle coming in, making that 3-point turn. And now that you're there and you feel it, and you see it.
I've got to tell you, it's a feeling now that I'm here of immense heartbreak. There's just, when I was sitting in the Mad Greek thinking about two of the girls working there, it's heartbreaking. And when you see the campus, I just think of all the things they had to live for, Chris. You know, there's their studies and the dances and the parties and the whole future before them. And I look back at this house and it's just like a bloodbath. It's just such a stark dichotomy, Chris.
You know, and I'll go back to your comment about the hunter. You know, this individual, if he is the individual, and allegedly at this point, you know, he's innocent until proven guilty. But
Flossie says that the what they used to find the footprint was this amido black 10B. Is an amino acid staining azo dye used in biochemical research to stain for total protein on transferred membrane blots, such as the Western blot. It is also used in criminal investigations to detect blood present with latent fingerprints. It stains the proteins in blue and black color. Okay.
He is so, again, I keep saying this, he's so methodical. It's almost as if this was a mission for him, like a daily event in our lives.
Let me throw a question to everybody on the panel. Chris, something you just said, I want to jump off of that. You know, he would send out these questionnaires to felons, rapists, murderers, and say, what were you feeling at the time of your crime? How did you pick your victim? Then we find out that he had tried to get on with the local police department, and you know that would have made him privy.
The audio has been debunked. That other audio, that's not the same thing that they're talking about. I'm trying to remember that Court TV reporter's name because she posted it on her page. What was her name? Courtney? Courtney? I don't remember. They debunked some audio, the audio thing, but we talked about that already previously. But they, I don't know if I retweeted it or where it's at. I don't know where it's at. If somebody finds it, we'll play it for you.
To crime scenes and violent crimes.
Sia or something? What's her name? Sia?
I'm just wondering if all of his interviews and his experiments and his attempt to get onto crime scenes just wasn't fulfilling him. And so he set out to do the murder himself.
There it is.
Because there's no rape that we've heard. Nothing.
Hold on a second.
All right. And
okay.
A viral post going around about some audio from the crime scene on the night of those murders. What do we know about that?
That's right. If anyone has been following this case closely, especially online and social media, TikTok, Facebook, you probably noticed a viral post, multiple viral posts regarding alleged audio. Remember in the affidavit, it says at 4:17 a.m., the neighbors to my left here have a surveillance video camera that picked up audio from Xana Kernodle's room about 50 feet away. About 4:17, hearing the dog begin to bark, hearing a loud thud and what sounded like either whispers or whimpering at around 4:17 during the time of the murders. So circulating online are posts like the ones you see on the screen of this alleged audio of that surveillance video here. And so being on the ground, I spoke with the neighbors here. Paul's going to pan over here how close this home is, this blue home that we've seen next to the crime scene where that surveillance video would be. I caught the people living there walking out earlier, and they have debunked that audio.
So right there from like the horse's mouth, they actually spoke to the house there. So that audio that's being talked about in the affidavit, I don't believe that's been released anywhere. The audio that somebody took of their alleged last moments, that's somebody that was being nasty and took somebody else's audio from some other situation, which I heard was a domestic violence situation, kind of almost like a Joseph Moore situation. Took the audio from somewhere else and used it to play and pretend as if, oh, this is their last moments that we're hearing on audio, and posted it.
Not the audio from that surveillance video. So I think that's important to clear up because those posts have gone so viral. But you can see behind me just how close that blue home where that surveillance video would be to Xana Kernodle's room right up there on the second floor to be able to pick that up.
Okay.
Was stolen. So what more motive could there be other than the desire to hunt and murder to see what it really feels like?
There's basically 4 reasons people are killed: money, sex, revenge, and crazy. Now, you're
What
looking
about
at
thrill?
Killing. Well, that falls into
Would that fit under crazy?
Sometimes, or it could fall into sexual. It depends on what you see at the scene. But again, just because there's no sexual assault doesn't mean he wasn't self-gratifying. And I'll tell you something else. You look at Ted Bundy, worked at the Rape Crisis Center. This is a need that he was filling for himself. There was nowhere online where he could get what he wanted, and that's to hear from the people that actually did it. This guy didn't want to hear from the victims. This guy wanted to hear from the killers, and that is critical for us to understand. He wanted to know, how did you feel before, during, and after? And at some point, he wants to experience them, himself. This is not new to us. We see people all the time. They can't, fulfill their own fantasy in their mind, so they turn to porn. Porn's not enough. They go to a prostitute. A prostitute's not enough. They go to another victim that is completely unsuspecting and has no idea this guy's around. This is what I see in this guy.
Okay, Dr. Ann.
That's what I was thinking about those people that we saw earlier, the local stories of these guys, these peeping Toms, where the guy even had his thing out. He's watching, I think, a mother and a daughter through the window. He's on camera. He's even looking around and all sort of stuff. And I'm thinking, like, why don't you just go watch some videos online or something? But these people clearly have some sort of issues in their head. I don't know if it's a thrill thing, a mental health thing. I don't know what it is. And like she said, maybe it's not enough after a while. They got to do all this other weird stuff.
Angela Arnold, renowned psychiatrist, we're trying to explain it in layman's terms, but the questionnaires and the desire to go to crime scenes, it just wasn't cutting it anymore, if in fact this is the killer. So he set out to find out what it really did feel like to commit a murder.
Well, sure, Nancy, because again, he is empty inside. Okay? He's completely empty. So as Cheryl just said, none of these things were fulfilling him enough. It's also very interesting to me, Nancy, and I think we should point this out on the show, that, you know, he chose to study with a woman named, he picked out who he studied with. He studied with Dr. Catherine Ramsland, and she's written like 60 books on different killers and stuff. He wanted to get in there and study with this particular person about and be very close to the murders. I happen to think that he wants some sort of notoriety from this. I think he wanted to connect with some of these different killers that have been written about, and he wants some notoriety out of this.
To Josh Fialo joining us from the Daily Beast, how does what we're spinning out right now, this theory, fit with what you've learned?
You know, everybody's kind of commented that he was a real smart guy, but he was also, there was always something about him that was different. And like I said prior, you could see it in his eyes. So for me, what I can tell from what we've learned about how he repeatedly went to the crime scene with his phone, thinking that, you know, cops would never even think it's him, to that one night where he thought to turn off his phone, he went to the crime scene, you know, or left it at home or put it on airplane mode. He thought that he was, you know, the killer expert who was going to go in. Cops were going to check, you know, the phone data, and we're not going to see his phone anywhere in sight. And he thought he took all the other precautions. He did everything he needed to do in order to make sure it never got back to him. So, you know, for me, I think that all these years of studying criminology and studying under professors who wrote, you know, tons of books about, you know, the art of killing or what goes on in the mind of a killer, I think this all kind of turned into him, you know, killing in November. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that had he not been caught, this would have been his only instance, just from what we've learned since his arrest.
You know, your words are very chilling to me, Josh, but I can't say that I don't agree with you.
Going back to school as a working adult doesn't mean half the cost of...
This guy who...
I saw somebody that said, I saw this in the Facebook chat. Somebody had said, Nikki says, another creator made a video today saying that he thinks Bryan ordered DoorDash and was hoping to pin the murders on the deliverer. The food came from Jack in the Box, Pullman, Washington. Is that really where it came from? Because the first thing I was going to tell you is, well, how did he make the order if his phone's off or in airplane mode? But you're saying he ordered it from from Pullman, Washington. No, that Jack in the Box I heard was really close to the house, is what I heard. Like super close to the house. I thought I should probably look that up. So my thing would be like, if that's what people are thinking, how did he make that? How did he order? Gonna have a headache a little bit.
We believe, cops believe, murdered 4 people, said that's so sad what happened to them. Back to Dr. Angela Arnold's theory that he's just imitating life because there's nothing inside. He's saying or doing anything he thinks a normal person would do. So, Chris McDonough, what I was trying to get back to with you is, in addition to the cell phone data placing him in various...
Well, there is one in Pullman by WSU, so yeah, I don't know.
Locations at the time of the killings.
But I thought
that morning...
Didn't they have the transaction for her or whatever? Buying that ordering that thing?
Later on, video surveillance has emerged of a white Elantra speeding by. You can see it through bushes and trees. And I believe that's why cops are still begging for information, as they should be, to help shore up their case.
Yes, and it's going to be really interesting to find out what else they have in relationship to that behavior. You know, remember, every behavior has a purpose. And for him to be methodical through this, I really feel that he...
That would be a pretty dumb move too, right? Imagine he's ordering on his own. What is he? He's ordering on his own account. He's going to deliver with his name and everything to a house where he's going to commit a murder. You know?
He's forgotten the idea of that the crime scene is going to show just how disorganized, though, he really was. And that all of this rejection that he feels, potentially from society, women, the grudge, the resentment, all of that, I think is built up to this quality where he felt that he was going to be the deliverer of justice, as we've talked about in the past, Nancy. And that's going to be his undoing here, because those pieces of evidence, like the car, like him returning, are going to start surfacing.
I don't know if you guys could hear it, but just in the background, right across the way, there is a steeple of some sort on campus, just right across the street from campus, and it was chiming the time. And I was just thinking about as that night went.
Yeah, the DoorDash I thought was clear too. That's true. I just don't see that as a plausible thing.
On, and those chimes were going every hour after the girls were murdered. And he had gotten away seemingly scot-free. I wish you could feel the feeling here. How would you describe it, guys? It's kind of eerie, and very, very quiet. It's almost like when you walk through a graveyard or you go into an empty church.
Frozen in time.
Like it is frozen in time. Everything.
She telling her what to say, or she's just kind of... Oh, no, she's just agreeing, I guess. Okay.
It's kind of eerie, and very, very quiet. It's almost like when you walk through a graveyard or you go into an empty church.
Frozen in time.
Like it is frozen in time.
Yeah? I'm just tripping, right? I'm tripping. I'm tripping, right? Okay. Do a little time stop. I don't know. She could just be agreeing with her, or maybe she's in her ear telling her. I don't know. Nah, I'm tripping. I like Nancy. I ain't gonna say that. It can't be, right? It can't be. I'm tripping. No, we're tripping, right? No. Can't be. I'm in denial.
Everything's kind of eerie. He had gotten away seemingly scot-free. I wish you could feel the feeling here. How would you describe it, guys? It's kind of eerie, and very, very quiet. It's almost like when you walk through a graveyard or you go into an empty church.
Frozen in time.
Like it is frozen in time. Everything is still out. People still have up Christmas decorations. It's like everybody just left the moment these murders happened. I want to go back to you, Cheryl. I really believe police have to shore up their case. They've got to shore it up. You think you've got DNA. The defense could easily argue, hey, I went to a gun and knife convention and I looked at a lot of knives and a lot of guns. That was obviously one of them. That's not mine. I mean, we've got to find the murder weapon. We've got to find more DNA right behind me in this home or in his Elantra. What do they need to shore up the kid dressed all in dark clothing with a mask over his nose and mouth? Do you think he got rid of that clothing? Do you think he got rid of those Van sneakers? Even the socks? Remember the blood that was on O.J. Simpson's socks? Could he? Would he think to get rid of every scintilla of evidence, Chris?
He certainly would think about it. The probability of some type of transfer, of some type of blood, or any type of trace evidence, that you cannot, get away with. And you've seen thousands of cases like that in your court time.
Yeah, I just don't see how he could get rid of all of it. Because if he wore those clothes into the car, I don't care if he got rid of the clothes. How could he get rid of everything in the car? And isn't it correct? Joining me, guys, is our friend from the Daily Beast, Josh Fialo. Josh, it's my understanding that surveillance on the family home in the Poconos, the Kohberger family home, they were out there 24/7. They had to be, because they spot him at 4 a.m. dumping the family trash, his trash, into the neighbor's receptacle. I think it was there that they observed him meticulously cleaning his Elantra over and over, inside and out.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And, I think this is one of the reasons why it took so long to take him into custody.
Who cleans their car outside in the Poconos when it's snowing and freezing cold like it is right here? Who would do that?
Somebody who has something to hide. And, another detail that was picked up while they were surveilling him, in Pennsylvania, was who takes their trash out in the middle of the night. First of all, who takes their trash out in the middle of the night? Second of all,
there's some people that do that, but I thought his time was like 3 or 4 in the morning or something like that.
Who takes their trash out in the middle of the night and then takes it to their neighbor's yard and puts it in their bin? That's somebody that tells me you're trying to hide something. And I think that the reason they were surveilling him so much in Pennsylvania was maybe once they got into his apartment, or they weren't getting the DNA and the evidence they needed back in Pullman, back in Moscow, and they were able to whenever back in Pennsylvania, because he had no clue eyes were on him.
I'm just wondering, I'm
I do it all the time.
right in front of the murder house, and I'm just wondering, Cheryl, Chris, Dr. Angie, Josh, jump in if you have any ideas. Where else could they retrieve DNA or hair, one hair of his at the scene? Because, Cheryl, you and I have been on a lot of homicide scenes. Have you ever noticed that there's always hair?
Yeah, the middle of the night thing, I feel like a lot of people do that. And when I say middle of the night, I'm talking like 11, 12. I think one's pushing it. But yeah, what I had heard, I thought somewhere they said this guy was taking the trash out like at 3 or 4 in the morning, which is a little bit more weirder, but I've seen some people do that. I don't think it's a common, but some people do. Yeah, if you guys could hit the like button, I'd appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for joining me in the stream. Gracias. Adri says Kaylee spent her 21st birthday at a WSU bar in June. Indigi Chili or Chill said thank you for the super chat. And Jen, thank you for becoming a member. All right, keep going. Almost done.
In the blood at a murder scene? Always.
Nancy, there's going to be evidence a whole lot of places that I'm sure we're not thinking about. They got evidence off the sheets. They got evidence off the floor. They got evidence off the victim's clothing. There's going to be a transfer too. The Lockhart principle. He left his own hair possibly at that scene. When the victims were fighting, we know some had defensive wounds. They could have his skin under their nail. You just never know. But I know this. The amount that has already been in the arrest affidavit was just enough to get him arrested. They have so
just
much
enough.
more. Yep.
One more thing before we close out for tonight. I'm not so sure. You got to think about in the probable cause affidavit and anything we have heard from police. I don't know how it ever got started that the victims were actually asleep in their beds. Now, we saw the bloody beds being carried out right behind me.
So, what we can say as far as the DoorDash delivery guy, so that guy has been ruled out. Some people theorize that, Brian maybe ordered this with the intention to get inside or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. Some people say maybe he ordered ahead of time. I don't too much believe in that. I mean, I'd say we'd have to wait and see, but this is authorities noted that the law enforcement interviewed an unidentified DoorDash delivery driver who shed light on the timeline and was eliminated as a suspect. So, I mean, at least that much we can say.
So we do know that the murders took place on the bed, but I just don't see how you can be looking at a TikTok at 4.
And I just feel like a DoorDash thing would just be so traceable. I mean, maybe it'll come out later, but it's just so why would he do that? Why would, using his own information, whether he did it beforehand or after the fact, to me, it doesn't make too much sense.
4:02, I think it was.
4:12.
4:12, thank you, Kelly. And then he's leaving. Was he leaving at 4:26? 4:25. I don't think that they were all asleep, Cheryl.
Well, the arrest affidavit says that Xana was on the floor, so we know that. But upstairs on the third floor, if they were in the bed asleep and under the covers, you remember the Jeffrey McDonald crime scene photographs? You could tell several of them were asleep. You can tell, even if they're murdered, that they were asleep prior to that. But I do believe that Ethan and Xana were awake. I do believe that.
One thing that is really haunting me, I was just going to go to you, Chris McDonough, is when I see how close these apartments are to the murder scene right behind me, and one of them seemingly picked up whimpering. Just imagining those girls whimpering in that house behind me as they were stabbed dead. I'm telling you, if this is not a death penalty case, then we should just abolish the death penalty, because we might as well not even have it. To think what these girls and Ethan went through, and don't you know, they are trying to enhance that sound right now. So one day, they're going to play it for a jury. We'll be back here again tomorrow. I hope you can join us here at Crime Stories. I wish you could be with us right now and see what we're seeing and hear what we're hearing. But I'll try my best, my very best, to relay it to you as best as I can. Goodbye.
It's Nancy, right? All right. Well, that was interesting. I'm wondering, is she going to be out there for an extended period of time? How long is she going to be out there? I'm going to play a couple more clips, and then I kind of want to head out of here because, I don't know, I got like this headache.
All right.
Kind of hungry, so I'm going to warm up some food, but just a few clips. This is the same woman, the Tinder date. I guess she was on Cuomo. I wonder if she said anything different or the same, probably the same stuff.
And I see proof. I see reason to speculate about the nature of the character of the suspect in Idaho. That's what I want to talk about tonight, because that matters. Young people lost their lives. The police say this is the guy. We have to figure it out. That takes me to our first guest. So let's go to the introduction for the first guest. This is interesting, okay? We're going to meet someone who says, I knew him several years ago. We went on a date. And she had a very memorable experience with him. Nothing tragic, but Haley Willett. She's on the screen right now. Haley, thank you very much. I appreciate this. Gutsy move, wanting to come forward and talk about this. You're going to expose yourself to the mob on social media. I suggest you stay off it for a day or so. But thank you for doing this. And let's start with the basic. How sure are you that BRYAN Kohberger is the same person that you went on the date with some years ago?
100%.
Because?
He just has a very memorable face, and I'm sure it's him. I remembered as soon as I saw him.
And the name is fairly memorable also, and he was going by BRYAN Kohberger then as well?
Yeah.
So tell me, what is the big takeaway for you about what you remember about this young man?
The big takeaway is that he seemed completely normal until, we got back to my dorm, and then he got kind of pushy.
All right, now let's try to feel this out, because you've been on plenty of dates, I'm sure, and it's not unusual for somebody to behave in a way you don't like, but this now matters to you. You say that there was a moment where he was touching you, not in a creepy way, but he was definitely touching you, and you brought it up, and that's when things changed. How so?
Yeah, he was touching me, and I just asked, "Why are you touching me?" And he immediately got very serious, and he said, "I didn't." And I just was like, "Okay, but you are touching me." And he was like, "No, I'm not touching you." And he just got very defensive.
That's so weird.
About it, so I just let it go after that. But it was very weird.
Now, people can get defensive, but everything that you've learned since made you see this through a little bit of a different lens. Explain that to me.
Yeah, exactly. This is a date I definitely told my friends about, just because it was a little weird, and especially his last comment to me. However, I haven't really thought about it until I saw his face again, and it made me look at it like, wow, he really could have hurt me, or
anyone, really.
And what did he tell you about himself that you remember?
We just had a lot of small talk. I remember we talked about the fact that we
Oh,
were both
Lord.
psych majors at the time. So I don't really remember any specific conversations or any specific details about them, but it was all very normal.
How shocked are you to see him doing a perp walk now, connected to such a heinous set of murders, at least temporarily, until police make the case?
It scares me because I was very young and dumb, and I didn't think twice about having anyone, know who I was meeting up with, where I was going, what I was doing, and it all could have ended very differently. And that makes me worried for other young women that, they think they're invincible and don't think twice about, telling someone where they're going or who they're going on a date with.
Well, hey, thank you for...
Got it. Let's see. Any other clips? There was a... Oh, I thought this... so I haven't watched this yet. They mentioned those Tapa Talk posts, I think.
There is still
Tapa
one
Talk.
big unanswered question hanging over the Idaho murder case, and that is why? If BRYAN Kohberger really is the killer, why? Why did he do it? Right now, it appears there is only one person in the world who knows the answer, and Kohberger ain't talking. But there might be a way for the rest of us to retrace the steps that led him into that cold Moscow jail cell. A series of posts that were found online, some of them really disturbing, just might have been written by Kohberger when he was a teenager. Here's an example from 2011 when he was 16. It reads, "I see a large intensity of black, yellow, white fuzz. It makes my mind fizzle, and I can barely keep in the bounds of reality. It is as if the ringing in my ears and the fuzz in my vision is simply all of the demons in my head mocking me." Dozens and dozens of posts like this were written on a site called Tapa Talk, in a forum for people who believed that they were suffering from a condition called visual snow syndrome. News Nation has not been able to independently verify that these are Kohberger's early posts, but there are strong indications that they are. And I'm joined now by the two people who found them. Lauren Mathias is a reporter who's been following this case very closely, and John Mathias, her husband, is a clinical and forensic psychologist who's done a deep dive into what the posts might mean. Together, they host the Hidden True Crime podcast. And welcome to both of you. Lauren, how did you...
She had that neighbor, Inan Harsh or Hash? Harsh, but his name would probably be better if it was Hash. Probably fit in better. Inan Hash.
You make this discovery, and how did you link it to BRYAN Kohberger?
Yeah, it was the Hidden True Crime team that did this together, and there was a verified email address that we used that uncovered these writings from 2011. The post, the photo looks to be a side-by-side of BRYAN. That the username is an email that he used, as well as his rapper name. He did some raps online, and he confirmed.
Yeah, we heard the rap song the other day. He was going hard on the rap song.
Confirms his own birthday.
Freestyle.
And a relative's address, as well as living in Pennsylvania. So things do seem to add up, as well as the hundreds of pages that we have poured over reading. Everything matches up to look like this is BRYAN Kohberger writing as a 16-year-old boy.
And there's like an array of writings. You say hundreds and hundreds of pages. That's just remarkable to start with from a teenager. But this went from 2009 to 2012, I think ages 14 to 17, John. And just sort of your overall impressions of the body of work as you went through it.
I think there's a couple pieces here that are most relevant. There's a couple pages that really kind of speak to his mental state at the time. But I think the overall picture that emerges here is this is a very troubled adolescent with many mental health issues. In fact, there's so many symptoms that he identifies, it's hard to know where to start.
I mean, it's sad and scary, sort of all at the same time, to hear that, because you think of a teenager suffering, but then you think of the person we're talking about, and it's hard to feel any sympathy at all if he's indeed the killer. Lauren, in 2009, the posts were pretty short, but then in 2010, they start to get longer. They're more confessional. They don't talk so much about his visual snow condition, whereas it's a physiological situation where you see a snowy outlook on life, basically. But these ones are more about his childhood and his life. Let me read this one. "I can't remember anything recent or anything from childhood. Now I am just a blank soul living in the now. My mind is never not on visual snow, and I always wonder what a normal person would be doing while I sit there and suffer. This whole thing has made me crazy. I feel like my life is pointless because people can think about times with parents, childhood, memories, and be happy, and I won't be able to. Do we know, Lauren, if he ever got any help for this? If he saw a doctor? If anybody reached out to him and tried to treat him?
We don't know what medical help he got. We do see that on these posts throughout these years, he tries different diets. He works really hard to try an array of diets, which actually confirms what a relative and friends have said about him being a very strict vegan or strict eater. It seems that
Yes, and another reporter dubbed it as a food fetish or something that he got.
he thinks that's the cause of what is called visual snow. And I think that, but again, it goes further than these physical symptoms, which is why I had to, take this to my husband, Dr. John Mathias, because it talks, as you mentioned, about demons. It talks about him feeling like a criminal in one point, yet he doesn't have a record. And that's why I said, John, like, you've got to look at these. What do these mean? This can't all be health issues, right?
Well, one of them, let's talk about that, John. In 2011, he's sort of latching onto this toxin theory. He says, I'm going to talk to a good neurologist about this, one that is very open-minded. I think this really is the cause. It might be the arteries being inflamed. It could hurt very bad. This seriously could be an issue that's undiagnosed. And then he goes on in 2011 and starts to tell people how to treat themselves. Like, he starts kind of telling other users what they need to do for their problems. And here's what he says. Visual snow is caused by toxins in our body. These toxins range from yeast overgrowth all the way to fungus. I believe I caused my visual snow by too much toxins from the sweetener I used, and also too much caffeine chemicals. I also lived in a moldy house. When something is happening in your brain that shouldn't, chemicals are being released that shouldn't. These chemicals are released because we have toxins that our body doesn't want. It is going haywire. John, do we know if this might have been the start of him becoming a vegan to try to treat himself? Because it certainly looks like he's telling everybody to, eat plant-based diets and fruit juices to heal themselves.
It does seem like he became vegan around that time. This is also a time that's consistent with him losing a significant amount of weight. One point I want to make, though, about the visual snow is that, to me, one of the issues here is that he wants to attribute all of his problems and all of his mental health problems to the visual snow, right? And that's a big question mark about whether is the visual snow causing the mental illness, or is it the other way around? Is it the mental illness that's contributing to physical and somatic symptoms? Psychologists call that somatization. So I think it's a stretch to go from visual snow to the things he's talking about, the screams, the demons, right? Those are in the moral domain. Those are not in the medical domain. So he's taking some of these medical issues and he's trying to force them into this mental illness box, I think, to some degree, when in fact we're probably talking about something that has more to do with values and is more about moral judgments, like being a criminal, than it is about medical issues.
And this one last line, he says, I feel like coming to terms could be a bad thing. It's ominous. Excellent work, both of you, Lauren Mathias and John Mathias. Thank you for watching. Go to...
Okay, and there is, let's see.
Saw things that were...
What are they talking about here? I think I kind of want to get off for a little bit. Oh, they're talking about the same thing. Okay. Okay. Lisa sent me a video. Let's take a look at this. Did I download it? Let's see. TikTok video. I guess this is let's see, I believe this is a really good depiction of the events that night and time frames. Thoughts, a really good visual of the Idaho home. Bubbly Eve posted this on TikTok.
In the beginning, most of us believed the two surviving roommates, Bethany and Dylan, were sleeping on the first floor. Since then, we've learned Dylan was sleeping here on the second floor, along with Xana and Ethan located here. Kaylee and Madison were located here on the third floor. The dog was located on the third floor and the room by itself. Let's move around and see through the walls into the kitchen, to the back slider, and take a look at the time frames. At 4:04 a.m., the suspect can be seen trying to park his car. At 4:09, approximately 5 minutes later, he enters the house through the back slider. At 4:18, he leaves the house after committing the crimes. At 4:20, he's caught on camera driving away at a high rate of speed. All of this only took 9 minutes. Let's watch what that looks like. The suspect enters through the back sliding door. The first bedroom he stops at and opens the door, he sees no one there. He continues to the next bedroom. Here we know what happens. Downstairs, Dylan is sleeping. The noise from upstairs wakes her up. She thinks it's Kaylee playing with her dog. She gets up and goes to the door and looks out. She sees nothing there. The suspect then continues down the stairs about 3 minutes later. He then heads to Xana's room. Outside, there's a security camera picking up some whimpering, cries, and a thud at 4:17. We've learned that Xana was found on the floor, which might explain the thud. Dylan again hears something and looks outside her door. She sees the suspect. He walks right past her.
Wow. Holy crap. And that's an interesting visual. S. Rodriguez says there's another video with slashing sounds. Oh, Lord. Did they really do that? Slashing sounds. It was scary as F watching it at night. You know, I asked Lisa to make sure there was nothing on there. So they're saying, I guess their theory kind of like he would have come in and go straight up first. And then come down. And as he's walking, that's crazy. Was that Bubbly Rev? Or let's see. Oh, true. Somebody left a comment, but how the knife was next to Kaylee when the last survived was Ethan being killed. It's still possible that maybe, that's a good point, but maybe he had left it upstairs and then still went to go kill and didn't realize he left it up there. Well, I'll put her video in the description if you want to check it out. Put it right now. And let me get the super chat. Somebody send me a super chat. Super chat. TikTok. Poppy Sanchez says, I'm going to peek in Mel's window and touch myself. Ugh. Thanks, Poppy Sanchez. A.V. Shannon, True Crime. Hi. Says, well, thank you for the super chat. I'm getting concerned that us sleuthers have found his mental illness for him and he's going to end up in a mental institution and delay everything. I don't know. So far, I mean, I remember, I think it was at the extradition thing, he said he was fine. But especially with that 2011 stuff, yeah, who knows if that's real, if that's really him, which I think it's plausible. I think it could be him. I think the timeline fits. I think the picture looks like him. It's facial. They could, as a last line of defense, maybe start trying to bring that into play to avoid maybe, I don't know, the death penalty. If they go with the death penalty route. Mary, thank you for the super chat. It says, anyone else notice DM's room is the only room out of 4 that does not have a window? Can't see her room from the back house if he was stalking. Oh, well. It looks like she does have a window, though. I'll have to pull up the simulator. I don't even know where that link is at. Mo sent it before, but... Simulator. Here it is. Yeah, she has a window. Laurel in Seattle, thank you so much for the super chat. And I think that's it, man. I'm gonna take a little break. Thank you guys so much for joining me for the stream. I appreciate it. After I eat and take a break and take some Excedrin. I don't know what. I have a weird headache. I've had it for a little while. It went away and it came back. I'm gonna work on the other video that I mentioned to you guys. I think it's pretty interesting. So I'm gonna take a little break and then I want to jump on that as quick as I can. Hopefully, yeah, I think the details are kind of interesting. All right, so if you can hit like on the way out, I appreciate it. Oh, by the way, check out the Swag It sponsor. Click the link. We're at the end of the stream. It's in the description. It's also pinned in the chat. All you got to do is click the link, download the app, follow my page, post videos on there, and yeah, I need food. I didn't eat much today actually, and can't even think. We're doing a giveaway at the end of the month, so I think $1,000. $500 from Swag It. It might be $500 from me. So just all you got to do is download the app to enter to win. And I'd appreciate it. It's a cool way to support the channel. It's a cool way that I can give back to you guys, and we'll have to have a fun stream. Is it causing visual snow? Thanks. Yeah, I'm good. I think I'm just gonna. I got a nice piece of chicken, a whole baked chicken from last night that my mother gave me, so I'm gonna warm that up. It's rumored that insanity pleas haven't been on the option in Idaho for 11 years. Ooh. Oh, you're good, Mary. Yeah, she has a window. Yeah, I know. I need to eat more protein. Yeah, that's true. I had eggs today earlier this morning, but that's kind of it. Thanks, Jama. I appreciate that. Thank you. CAMILLE, you're a cool cat. Don't change a thing about you and your channel. They don't like the voice. They get upset with the voice. Oh, as far as... So Leo says... Swag It doesn't work here. Yeah, Swag It is only US based, but I spoke to the guy today and he told me the next version 2.8 will be available in Canada. Then they're planning eventually to roll it out in the UK and other English speaking countries after Canada. So it's coming up. It's expanding. I know I think you're in Africa though, so you're gonna have to wait. I don't know if it comes out. I don't know. I don't know. That would be interesting. I'd like to meet Nancy. I'm going to CrimeCon. So for breakfast, I don't really skip it, but I like to like wait a while. I don't like to eat. I try to like, if I can, wait a couple hours after waking up. Oh, they got upset with the voice. I can't believe you, man. How could you? No. I've been watching you. If you've been watching me, the voice wouldn't be a new thing to you. I've been watching you. Vegan chicken. So, Terry, to earn swag bucks, I think you earn swag bucks but just by watching videos. You earn swag bucks by watching videos. I think if you send swag bucks to, I think they give you some swag bucks back. You can. It's also linked to Swagbucks website if you wanted to do surveys, but you don't have to. I've never done one survey. I've only just stayed on the video app, and you can earn Swagbucks by uploading videos. If you upload videos, if you decide that you just want to start uploading videos, you can. I've cashed out $200 through PayPal so far, and let me see like how many points do I have. If you post videos, it's a lot easier. See, right now I don't have as much as I used to have. I'm at 8,000 Swagbucks after I cashed out. Damn, that one got 1,000 views. What the hell? I was just at the beach. Maybe it's because my shirt was off. Swagbucks. And if you have the app, make sure. Oh yeah, I'm gonna call you. Yeah, Edward. After I eat, I'll call you. Mel, just rest. You can call later. Okay, yeah. Just want to talk to you a little bit. But yeah, love you guys. Take care. Peace.